Wait, what about weird?
Hi, my little killer kitties. I got a super disturbing story for you guys. You're just going to love it. And today we're pairing it with this lovely, what is it? Ooh, it's a Yes Way Rosé. How fitting. Yeah, no, I'm fucking with y'all. I'm Elena.
And I'm Echo. I was just like trying not to fucking lose it that entire time.
I look over and you're just dead staring at the recording. You're like, she's doing it. She said she wouldn't, she said she would. I didn't think she actually would. You're staring at it.
I'm just like cringing inside my soul.
Yeah, no, it's so bad. It's so bad. We're not those people. I'm Elena.
And I'm Echo.
And this is our podcast, What About Weird? Not a true crime and wine podcast, but a podcast where we discuss all things weird, from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. I need to stop trying to say everything in one breath. I keep doing that.
Then you're like,
I'm like, unhinged history.
I do the same thing though.
But we are sort of talking true crimey today, hence me doing an annoying intro. So there are many enduring mysteries, but few as mystifying as the case of 9 young Soviet hikers found massacred in the far-flung Ural Mountains. What? Far-flung?
The far-flung Ural Mountains.
Yeah, far-flung Ural Mountains! We're going real. Oh, I'm so sorry I just looked over and saw this level spike on that. I'm so sorry for anybody listening. I'm going to push my mic a little bit away so I don't noise blast everybody. The far-flung Ural Mountains. I will be attempting to pronounce many Russian words. I will probably be butchering them. I've tried to learn proper pronunciations, so apologies in advance if I fully butcher them. But almost 7 decades later, many questions remain unanswered. Well over 1,500 miles from Moscow in west central Russia, the I wrote rural range. What is rural? The rural range stretches about the same distance north to south. It forms the divide between the Caspian and Aral basins. Tall, sharp, and imposing. I misspelled sharp as shart. So, you know.
It's so funny.
We're starting out great, folks. It's great. Tall, sharp, and imposing. It's easy to imagine getting lost and forgotten among all the peaks and valleys. In case you haven't guessed, today we're diving into the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident.
I'm so excited. This is one of I think about this all the time.
This is my, not quite my Roman Empire, because that's probably the Hippo Bill, but it's definitely up there.
It's close. It's close.
So, what do you know about Russians?
God. I don't think I've ever met a single person from Russia. Have you? Do you know anyone?
Yes, actually, I used to work with someone from Russia at my old job.
Actually, that's not true. I knew some foreign exchange students, and one of them was Russian at my college, but I talked to her once.
Not a lot. I've known a lot of Ukrainians for some reason.
Interesting.
I went to high school with a bunch of people from Ukraine. Anyway, so let's get a little context in here. Eisenhower and Khrushchev had their respective nations locked in the midst of the Cold War. World War II had come to an end less than 15 years ago. The Korean War was over less than 6 years ago. The Hungarian Revolution was over 3 years ago. Sputnik had been launched not long ago, along with the dog Laika, and Russia was still 2 years away from sending a human into space. The U.S. had successfully detonated the first hydrogen bomb in the first part of the decade. In short, it was an explosive, exciting, anxiety-inducing time full of promises of unknown destruction. After decades of repression under Joseph Stalin, things began to open up slowly under Khrushchev. People in the Soviet Union now had access to some foreign literature, music, and films. This was known as the Thaw and had begun to open up the Soviet Union to a few economic reforms, international, and cultural competitions. Above all, though, it was the golden age of Soviet science. And among all of this, our 9 hikers were living when they took their fateful hike.
Yuri, and Yuri.
I mean, you're pretty damn close. It's like Yuri, Igor, and Yuri. I think at one point I numbered them because I started getting annoyed by saying Yuri. So I have like Yuri 1, Yuri 2, Yuri 3, and I'm going to call one of the Yuris Gregory because that was actually his name, but he went by Yuri.
Oh, okay.
So, in January of 1959, a 5th-year student at Ural Polytechnical Institute by the name of Igor Dyatlov led a group of fellow students on an expedition to cover over 190 miles in 16 days across the northern Ural Mountains. I'm sorry for my inconsistent pronunciation. The correct pronunciation is Ural. I may not be sticking with that because I'm inconsistent and I only wrote the pronunciation in one spot. So the same goes with all other of these words.
That's what it was like in my mushroom episode when I kept trying to pronounce the name of that one mushroom over and over. I think it was different like every time.
I mean, that's how my spelling is as well. The Ural Mountains, for those of you who don't know, are, I already described sort of where they are, but this area is tundra, and it's subarctic, so it's very, very fucking cold. So they intended to reach the village of Vizay, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, and then travel from there. They would make contact, when they returned, they would make contact there at the conclusion of their journey. The group were all experienced outdoors people, and most of them were students at Ural Polytechnical Institute in Yekaterinburg. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women. So
I thought it was a group of 9, but it's a group of 10?
It's a group of 10, but one of them drops out super early.
Oh,
so
okay.
Only, I'll get into it later, but only 9 of them die. So you normally only hear...
Wow, spoilers.
Spoiler alert, they all die. Spoiler alert for an over 70-year-old case. They fucking died.
Now how's anyone gonna care about these characters you're gonna talk about?
Because they're cool and badass. Literally all of them are so badass.
Okay.
They're like exploring the tundra of Russia and they're all like super smart and interesting.
They are doing something that I would never ever do in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Good for them.
I watched a documentary about this and it was so funny because it was this guy that was like, I'm going to follow the path that the Dyatlov group took to understand what might have happened. And the whole time he's complaining about being cold and it being difficult. I'm like, nobody's making you do this. He's like, it's so hard. I don't know why they would do this. And the last 3 minutes of the documentary, he's like, wow, this is beautiful. I can see why they did this. And you're like, really? Wow. It took you all this time on the back of he was riding on like a snowmobile. He's like, it's so hard and difficult.
On a snowmobile, he didn't even like hike like they did.
There's like one scene of him falling off of a snowmobile and he's like, it was so dangerous. It's a fun documentary,
which
though.
I'm sure is dangerous, but come on, my dude.
But it's so goofy though, because I'm sure there's so much stuff we didn't see, but it like in the documentary it's pretty super easy going, and then they show that one shot of him falling off of it and he's like, we almost died, and you're like, okay. So, let's get into the people. We have Igor Dyatlov, who was the leader. He was a 5th-year radio engineering student and one of the most experienced athletes in the group. This trip would be his 10th, and it would earn him the rank of Master Outdoorsman, which is a huge deal. There's similar, in other mountain ranges, there's similar achievements. I can't remember the names because they're all in other languages and I didn't write them down.
And what is this, like... I don't know, like the government gives you the rank of Master Outdoorsman?
Yeah, no,
like,
basically.
Where does this come from? Oh, interesting.
Basically.
Okay.
I forgot to write down his age. I have everyone else's age. But keep in mind, he's like college age. This guy's like college age.
And he's already, this is going to be his 10th trip?
Yes.
Oh,
Everyone
shit,
is like
that's
college
crazy.
age. There's one guy that's a lot older than everyone else, but pretty much everyone else is in their early 20s.
Okay.
So he was known as a bit of a rebel and known for taking charge wherever he could. And sometimes it would cause some issues with people in other groups he was in. So next person we have is Yuri Doroshenko, who is 21, and he was studying power economics, which I'm not sure what that means. I guess maybe power and economics. I just mistyped it. But next up we have Alexander Kolatov, who is 24, studying nuclear physics.
Oh, I love that for him.
Yeah. We have Gregory, also known as Yuri Krevnoshenko. Sorry, my bad. He was 23 and he was studying hydraulics and construction engineering. Next is Rustem Slobin, who is 23. He was an engineering student who had graduated the year before. He was also a bit of a musician in the group. Reading their journals, you'll see like, oh, he was singing, he was playing his little, I think it was a mandolin he had.
Mm-hmm.
So continuing on, we have Semyon Zolotaryov, who is the oldest of the group at 38. He was not a student, but he was a sports instructor, and he joined them around the time when they were just getting started. The rest of the crew in their journals made it clear they weren't too happy with him coming along, but they're like, what are we going to do? Tell him not to come along? And they also thought that he might have been sent by the government to keep an eye on them.
That's a weird thought.
Well, keep in mind, this is Soviet Russia in the late 1950s.
Yeah, I just couldn't
keeping
imagine
an eye on everybody.
Thinking that some random 38-year-old joins my hiking group and I'm like, this is a government spy.
The book that I read for this research, it's called Don't Go There by Svetlana Ost. It has some great cultural context, and she also puts a lot more detail than I am able to go into in this episode. Great book. I highly recommend it. But she grew up in Soviet Russia and is able to provide a lot of context. And she was saying, everybody's spying on everybody else. They're saying this person's not being enough of a communist. I'm going to report you to the government, the local government and whatever.
Because I guess to be fair, that was happening in the U.S. too, except in the opposite context.
Yeah, no, for
during
sure.
the Red Scare, where everyone was spying on each other because it was you are a communist. You are anti-American.
But there's a whole lot of stuff going on at this point of we gotta, we're opening up a bit, but we don't want people to become democratic. We can't have capitalists in here. And we'll get into it at the very end. But there's some theories that the government thought they might have been trying to escape with this.
Oh, shit.
And trying to meet up with somebody to help take him out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing this as a ruse. So that's why they think he might have been sent with them. So Zolotaryov was a World War II vet, and he studied military engineering and later graduated from the Institute of Physical Education in 1950. And he often asked the group to call him Sasha for some reason. Next, we have the women. We have Lyudmila Dumanina, who was 20. She was an econ student. While being shy, she was a total badass. All the sources that I saw said that she once got shot and just didn't make a fuss of it. Accidentally got shot and she was like, whatever. She was also the one who planned and organized this trip and convinced the school's adventuring club to let them do this. She was in charge of planning it. Even though Dyatlov was the leader, she was the planner around it and the organizer and stuff. She was also often called Luda, so you'll hear me refer to her as Luda a lot.
Okay.
And the next we have Zindaya, I think is how it's pronounced, and who often went by Zina Kolmogorova. She was age 20, a radio engineering student. She was also Yuri Doroshenko's ex, Yuri 1. I think I missed mentioning Yuri 2, which I'll go back to him.
Okay, I think so too, because I remember Gregory, who goes by Yuri.
Yeah, so let me finish talking about Zina here. So she was Doroshenko's ex, and there's a letter discovered after her disappearance that she sent to a friend months later where she was talking about how she was sort of nervous to go on this trip with her ex, but things were relatively amicable between them. There's a great story about how she originally fell in love with Doroshenko, and they were on a previous expedition, and a brown bear, which for people who don't know, is basically just a grizzly bear. The only difference is location and what they eat. Grizzly bears are just more fierce because there's less food. Mm-hmm. But basically a grizzly bear is a brown bear that he chased off with a geologist's hammer. He like ran up to it wielding a geologist's hammer and then came back, and she was like, I love this man. Which is very Russian, I think. Let's jump back to Yuri Yudin, who I forgot to mention. Mm-hmm. Yuri number 3. He was 22 and an econ student. He suffered from sciatica and would drop out before the journey really got underway. We'll talk about when he drops out later. So those are everybody who is involved. Any questions so far?
Mm-mm.
Sick. So their intended path was to leave from Vizay and go to Tortin, following the Losva River. The expedition was considered a Category 3, which is the highest level of difficulty in the Soviet Union at the time. And like I said, it would take them almost 200 miles through harsh weather conditions.
God, that is so far.
Tall, sharp mountains in rural subarctic Russia.
Like, I went on a 10-mile hike, and I was like, holy shit, that was a long hike.
Yeah.
200 miles is fucking insane.
Over 16 days.
Oh my god.
I mean, I guess what else do you do in 1959?
How long is the Appalachian Trail?
That's a few thousand miles. Because it stretches all the way from Georgia to Maine.
Yeah.
It's like North Georgia to middle of Maine. It's a long-ass trail.
People take like...
And that's months.
Yeah, months to travel that one. Okay.
The guy I know that did the AT took like most of spring and summer and some of fall to do it, and he was hiking pretty fast. So most of what we know comes from their diaries, photographs, and letters that they sent. The moral of this story, kids, is keep a diary in case you die horribly. So we can sort of piece together what happens to you.
Oh my god, that's so terrible. Anytime you go on a trip, keep a detailed diary so that when you die, we know what happened.
When I almost died in a tornado, I was sitting there like, man, I wish I wrote a diary. To get started, they were leaving from school, and they almost missed their train and made it by barely minutes. They kept almost not going on this trip for one reason or another, which is crazy to me to think about. So after they took the train to the jumping off point, they're on the train, they're singing, they're joking with each other. At one point, a super drunk guy comes up to them and starts an altercation over a supposed Stalin bottle of vodka. He said, "It's our bottle. It's Soviet Russia. It's our bottle. It's not yours. It's ours.
It's ours.
It's our bottle.
Our collective alcohol."
Yeah, I like that I didn't get a reaction from... I worked hard on my Stalin bottle of vodka joke.
I just thought it was like maybe a brand name. I was like, wow, Stalin really went all in. He's got his own alcohol.
I mean, probably. So he started this altercation, and he punched one of the boys in the straight in the mouth because of it. He was like, "Hey, give me my vodka back." Punched him in the mouth. He eventually just wandered off when he couldn't prove that it wasn't his bottle. He was like, "Give me my vodka back." "Oh, I can't prove that's mine. Okay, bye."
That's wild. Okay.
So, and then at one of their stops, one of the guys, I believe it was the musician Rustam, he briefly got arrested for singing too loudly in public.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So they almost missed their next train.
Like, the universe is giving them so many
signs. This trip almost didn't happen because the school almost didn't let them. They almost didn't go when Zolotaryov joined them, the 38-year-old. And then they almost missed their train. They got arrested. They almost missed the next train, and they keep going. So after the first day, they spent the night in Sirvo with Zena's family on the 25th of January. From there, they got a lift to a logging base called Settlement 41, which it was really common at that time just to have numbers for settlements instead of actual names, because if maps got out, there weren't actual names, and people had names for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, oh, on maps it's this, and it's sometimes it's easier to get things confused with numbers than names.
Right.
But it's called Settlement 41. That night, they enjoyed chatting with the lumberjacks around a warm stove, discussing their favorite films. And then the next day, they headed out. The students were weighed down with their rucksacks as they followed the river valley and the hunting tribes of the native Mansi. And they went to the abandoned North 2 mining settlement. It was really hard going, and it started taking its toll on Yuri number 3, Yuri Yudin. Xena wrote, his sciatic nerve is flaring up again, and he's decided to go home. Such a pity. We distributed our loads in our backpacks. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a Russian accent. I'm trying to do a thing.
I didn't realize you were doing it at first, and then I was like, oh, this is so good.
I'm trying to do it. We distributed his loads in our pack. She wrote, Yudin felt really, so severely unwell that he had to return by sled.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he hated to leave his friends, but this would ultimately save his life. In interviews later on, after this all got out, people are interviewing him, and he has super hard survivor's guilt about it.
Oh, God, I bet.
So eventually they reached Vizay on, I have the 25th written 4 times. It's not all the 25th. I think some of the dates are wrong. But they eventually reached Vizay, and they were happy to find that night there was a movie playing in the village club. Even though the footage was bad and not the best quality, they all really enjoyed it, and they were singing along with the movie, and they were dancing. They were in very high spirits. And all of the pictures from this time, if you look them up, I'm going to post some online. But they're all very happy. They're having a good time. They're it's very sweet to see, but then when you know what happens, you're like, oh no. But it's just very sweet, happy, college kids being college kids, basically. So after Vizay, they continued towards their end goal, Mount Ortorton, which translates roughly to don't go there in Mansi. So,
20th and final sign that the universe is going to give you.
Not the final sign.
Oh, shit. Okay, well,
yeah,
the 20th sign out of 100.
Literally all of...
you.
I'm going to talk about it later, but there's more places that are just seriously concerning names that should have been signs.
Okay.
So there's some conjecture over whether Mount Ortorton is considered a sacred place by the Mansi or not. The Mansi are a group of indigenous reindeer herders in the area. By the 1950s, the Mansi weren't the only people living here, but they were the primary people living around here. So laying around the area were a bunch of badly dilapidated houses, half buried in snow. It wasn't a village, but it was the remains of lodging built for prison guards of a gulag. This is once a vast spanning network of prisons known as Evdel, where over 30,000 inmates were, and it was basically like a labor camp. The camp had a reputation of just being super terrible, one of the worst gulags out there. But because it was so remote and in such harsh conditions, people just didn't try and escape. But it had sort of fallen apart and were dilapidated.
It wasn't one anymore.
No.
Okay.
No. But there is yet another sign.
Yeah.
When the most violent gulag is in the area that people don't want to escape from because the area is so bad, I think that's a sign.
It's also wild to me that indigenous people have lived there for so long.
Yeah.
Humans are so crazy.
Humans are
the
wild.
places they choose to live.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So further on, just past this, is the Kolat Shayakau. Again, sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciations of these. As the slopes of Kailashoko, which translates to Mountain of Death.
Oh my god.
These people gotta chill the fuck out. Seriously.
Hey, I appreciate these names. They are telling it like they see it.
No, it is. It is. I mean, America, we'll sort of tell them like we see them, but the one we have is what? Death Valley, and then everything else is the Blue Ridge, the Cumberlands, the Rockies.
We either name them after, like, racist people or, like...
Or the Bible.
They're like, this mountain, very large. We're gonna call it Big Mountain or something stupid like that.
We're gonna call it Big Butt Mountain. That's a legitimate mountain name. There's Big Butt, and right next to it is Little Butt Mountain.
Or, like, Stone Mountain. Like, come the fuck on. You couldn't have been more creative than that.
These mountains are rocky. We're gonna call them, what should we call them? Stony Mountains? No. Rocky Mountains. We're gonna call them the Rocky Mountains. But no, the Russians are like, fuck that. We call it Mountain of Death.
We're calling it the Murder Mountain.
Death Mountain. So, on the night of February 1st, the students pitched their tent here, and nobody's quite sure why. This is where their journals cut out. Not much else is known other than what was found. So, all that is known is they were originally planning to check in on the 12th of February, but they didn't. Knowing that the conditions were sort of harsh, no one thought too much of it, that they were a little bit late, but by the 17th, their families really began to worry, and search parties were sent out.
How long had they been on their trip at this point? Because it was supposed to take them 16 days. They left on, the 25th?
Yeah, the 25th. They started around the 25th.
And now it's the 12th?
It was the last known journal entry was the 31st.
Oh, shit.
So they, like, just got to the edge of the wilderness.
So they're, like, only 6 out of essentially 16 days in, and their journal entries stop. And this is on frickin' the Mountain of Death.
Yeah, straight up. They're in between Don't Go There and Mountain of Death.
Okay.
Once the search parties were sent out and started finding clues, here's what they found and what they said happened from what they pieced together. So February 26th is when rescuers actually started finding stuff.
That's like a month after they initially taken off. That's so fucking long. Wow.
Well, like, keep in mind,
they knew at that point that they probably weren't alive anymore.
Yeah, no, probably not. Super harsh conditions, keep in mind. Super harsh. Probably took it because they landed in there with helicopters and stuff. Wow. So it's probably they had to wait for the right conditions to land and everything. So they landed on the slopes of Kolat Shaikel. Again, don't know if I'm saying that right. I wrote the pronunciation down, but it makes no sense. Kolat Shaikel. Something along those lines. And around then, they found the tent. They found it had been badly damaged and cut open from the inside, suggesting that the hikers had fled in a panic. And all of their supplies and equipment were still inside.
They found this stuff. They found all their stuff at the same location as where they said in their last journal entry?
Yes.
Okay. So
all of their stuff,
like they cut off probably when something happened to them. Like they didn't write their last journal entry and then continue on for another day. Like it ended right then and there.
From what we can tell, yes.
Okay.
Unless they wrote a journal entry and then stayed here for a while, and we're not like that's it's kind of hard to tell with everything, but all of their equipment and everything was in the tent, which had been cut open from the inside, it looked like, because of the way that the fibers were laying and everything.
Okay.
This is what the Russian government and the searchers said they found. And footprints indicated that they had all left barefoot or stocking-footed. And this is in sub-zero temperatures, and they all headed towards the forest.
Oh, shit. So they're in a hurry.
Yeah. And keep in mind, as I'm saying this, there's a lot of information I couldn't include because we're trying to make this, around an hour, a bit under an hour. There's so much information that Svetlana Ost includes in her book that I can't include, so there's more information, more details and stuff that I'm leaving out. So if you want more information, again, highly recommend reading or listening to that to get more information, because there's a lot of extra stuff. So the first two bodies, Yuri 1 and Yuri 2, so that's Yuri Gregory and Doroshenko, were found under a cedar tree at the edge of the forest, shoeless and dressed only in their underwear.
Oh my god.
Evidence of a small fire was nearby, and their hands hands and some of their legs were burned. 3 more bodies, those of Igor, Zina, and Rustem, were found scattered between there and the tent, as if trying to return to the campsite since they were all found facing in the direction, like they had fallen in that direction of as if they were heading, like they were walking there and they just fell forward. They all showed some signs of hypothermia, and Igor Dyatlov had some bruising and lesions around his wrists and ankles that did show that like are similar to people that have been tied up, which is interesting.
Wait, this was which one?
Dyatlov.
Oh shit.
The leader. But this is something that you can see in the photos, but you don't see in most of the autopsy reports for some reason.
So the government themselves and like these people that found them, they don't have any explanation for why he has these bruises? Like, they don't give any sort of explanation for it?
I'll talk about it later, but it seemed like they were more eager the Russian government was more eager to find everybody than they were to solve the case. And a lot of modern criminologists were like, yeah, this was a real rush job and poorly done even for the time.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, we'll get into all the theories after I go through everything, and we can chit-chat about that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. That's not something you hear in a lot of the podcasts and stuff. So, Rustem had a minor skull fracture behind one of his ears, as well as some cuts. And they all had some cuts and bruising. So, after the first 2 bodies were found, a legal inquest began and determined that the causes of death were hypothermia, and it seemed pretty straightforward for the most part. Yeah, sure, it was strange that they were undressed and stuff, but this isn't uncommon with victims of hypothermia. So paradoxical undressing happens with about 25% of hypothermia victims, which is where the hypothalamus malfunctions and the body temperature seems to be rising instead of dropping, which it actually is. So they'll start thinking they're burning up instead of freezing to death, and they'll strip naked.
Well, here's the thing though. Did they find their clothes strewn about where the bodies were, like they had taken them off after they left the tent? Or do we think that they left the tent already naked?
So most of their clothes weren't found around them. Some were found in the tent, and some were found on other people. So some of the clothes were found on other bodies. We'll get into it later, but like one person's sweater was found on somebody else. One person had like somebody else's jacket wrapped around their feet for extra warmth. We'll get into it, but there is like some of their clothes laying around and some in the tent. But it is weird. It's not unusual to, like I said, not unusual to find hypothermia victims who have stripped. It is weird to not find their clothes.
Yeah.
And it would also be weird for them to leave the tent undressed because it was so incredibly cold. Remember, they're sleeping in a tent.
Yeah, but they also didn't put shoes on and they left their tent, so none of that makes sense either.
Yeah, but it would make more sense to sleep fully dressed. To me, it would make more sense to sleep fully dressed without shoes on than to sleep fully naked without shoes on in subarctic temperatures.
Yeah.
So after 2 months, it took more than 2 months to find the last 4 bodies.
Oh, shit.
And they were all discovered about 75 meters further into the woods. So these were the bodies of Luda, Simeon, Alexander, and Nikolai, which I don't think I talked about him. I might have skipped him.
Oh yeah, I don't remember Nikolai.
I
should have been like counting.
No, he was one of the structural engineers.
Oh,
I might have skipped over him.
Maybe
I skipped over him.
Ring a bell because maybe it was like I was focused on his last name or something.
I didn't. No, I did skip over him. Yeah, he was a 23-year-old structural engineer. I skipped over him and Yuri Yudin at the same time.
There's just so many.
There's so many people.
It's hard to keep track, and being a dumb American, it's hard for me to keep track of like specifically people that have like foreign names.
I'm trying to keep track of these names, and I'm actively looking at them. Yeah. So I totally forgot to mention him. I am so sorry. But the 4 bodies of Luda, Simeon, Alexander, and Nikolai were better dressed, and this is where the clothes from the other people come in. This suggests they may have taken clothes off the others after the other's death.
Oh,
so Luda's feet were wrapped in pieces of Yuri Koroshenkov's pants, and Simeon was found wearing Luda's hat and coat. Some of the garments had been cut off of that, had been cut as if they were forcibly removed.
So maybe they hadn't stripped down because of hypothermia. Maybe like the other people had taken their clothes and that's why they were naked.
Initially, when they just found them naked, they assumed it was something like that, and they didn't find their clothes because they were buried in the snow. Weirdly, none of them, like I said, none of them had their gear, but Simeon Zolotaryov had fled camp with his camera and no other gear. So that's bizarre. Heads up for just a content warning. We'll put a content warning at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
We probably should. But things get pretty violent here. And they had suffered... So these 4 bodies showed clear signs of very, very traumatic injuries. Luda had her ribs crushed and her tongue was missing, or as if cut off or ripped out.
Oh my
and her
God.
eyes were missing. Simeon had massive chest injuries, and Nikolai had a fatal skull fracture. Strangely, they had no major external wounds that you would expect from having such forcible injuries. Like, Luda's ribs being crushed were so bad, I believe it was her, that one of the ribs had pierced her heart. But they didn't really have any bruising outside of that. Forensic examiners compared it to the effects of a car crash. The injuries were not caused by this could not have been exerted by a person unless the person was like jumping on them from a great height.
Well, and there's no reason for it to be an animal, like a bear or anything either, because they would have had some sort of like bite or
claw
scratches or the bear would have like eaten part of them.
No,
There's
for sure.
Nothing to do with an animal attack here.
Yeah, because bears will jump on people and crush them. Like, that is a known thing that they will do. Just trying to subdue things as quick as possible. But bears are pretty, like, opportunistic, so they may kill something in defense, not in a predatory fashion, and then because it's there, they will eat it because food is food.
Right.
But there's no sign of anything like that.
Yeah, whatsoever.
And no soft tissue damage was observed, like external soft tissue. Some of their internal stuff was really messed up. And they were all found face down in a creek and were pretty decayed. So some people think that that's why some of their soft tissue was missing, like the one girl's eyes and tongue.
Because they were in a creek?
Yeah, I think that's kind of BS.
That's a terrible explanation for her eyes and tongue being out. Like, it's one thing if it's like, she was face down in a creek and so her, like, nose had worn off. Her fucking eyes and tongue are missing. What are you talking about? No,
there's a lot of stuff that's very questionable that we'll get into of, like, that makes no sense even to someone who's not a coroner.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, soft tissue will decay faster. I could understand the eyes decaying faster. But the tongue?
And they said it seemed like it had been, like, ripped or cut out.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not like...
explanation there might be is if she bit it off when she fell.
Yeah, that's what I would think. So I almost bit my tongue off when I was a kid, and the mark on it looked halfway between being cut and torn because it's not super sharp, but it's sharp enough to... really cut through.
Yeah.
Supposedly, there was no adverse weather on the 2nd, which is when officials believed they died. And interestingly, a number of their clothes showed significant levels of radiation.
Whoa, okay.
During forensics examinations, they noticed they could decrease the amounts of radiation by washing the fabric. And if they had been in a creek, it would have been being washed a lot for a really long time.
Oh, shit. So the radiation levels when they died were probably really high.
Exactly. So due to an absence of a guilty party, the inquest was closed basically as soon as they were found in May of 1959. So literally only a few weeks after the last bodies were discovered. The files were archived and classified, and when they finally became accessible in the 1990s, after the Soviet Union fell, parts of them were straight up just missing.
Oh my god, like a government cover-up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're about to get into theories and stuff in a little bit. So it was quickly closed by Soviet authorities, who said that the cause of death was a compelling natural force that the hikers could not overcome. After the Soviet Union fell and after the primary investigator retired, I think I have it later on, he did an interview saying that he was told to tell the public that it was hypothermia, but in a lot of ways very obviously wouldn't, and in good conscience he couldn't say hypothermia. So that was his wording to get around that.
Oh my god.
This day, theories range from crazy winds to secret military experiments, but there's been no defining theory. In February of 2019, the Russian government under Putin reopened the case due to people claiming that things were being held from the public, only for the result to be that it was a slab avalanche that caused their death. A slab avalanche is basically just a whole sheet of ice or of snow sliding down in one big sheet. And a lot of people still aren't super happy with that.
Yeah, because I've never heard of any, like, avalanches or anything that cause, like, a crazy amount of fucking radiation. Like, what is there?
Yeah,
like,
no,
uranium
for sure.
in the mountain?
For sure. I could see with the crushed ribs, it would be soft material that wouldn't cause bruising, but would put a whole bunch of pressure on them. But you would see signs of suffocation if that were the case. Or in avalanche victims, you'll see like crusts of ice around their mouth and nose as they exhale and melt the snow, and then it refreezes.
Uh-huh.
And there was none of that. So let's get into some theories. So first off, we'll give some information that might be relevant. Like I said, with the primary investigator who said he couldn't in good conscience say that it was, it was hypothermia. He did say in that same interview that he believed that it was a UFO that caused their death.
What?
This is coming from the primary investigator.
That's fucking crazy, okay.
Another thing is, at this time, UFO mania was in full force in the US. And it was a big thing in Russia to make fun of American UFO mania. So, the last picture on their roll, there's a lot of things of pictures of their roll, of like their camera pictures. The last picture was of a glowing object in the dark. You can look this up. This is picture 34 if you look up Dyatlov Pass, picture 34. Another weird thing is on one of the other people's cameras, the last photo looks like, and I quote, a Yeti-like figure in photograph 17. If you look up Dyatlov Pass photograph 17. Another thing I should mention, livermosis is the pooling of blood in decomposed tissue. As decomposed tissue lets blood in and it stains the tissue. After it has been stained, this does not change. Like, it doesn't change. You can move the bodies around, it will not change. The livor mortis in their bodies did not match the positions they were found in. As if they had been moved.
What the fuck?
And I had already mentioned this, but modern criminologists felt it was a Russian investigation, and they were more focused on trying to find the bodies than the cause of their death. And will point out so many flaws of just saying, oh, it was hypothermia, but only Dyatlov showed very clear signs of hypothermia. Other people showed signs of dying in other ways. So, this is very rushed. So, some of the theories, I'm just going to run through them real fast. Number one, a Yeti attack. Like I said, there's the Yeti-like picture.
That's so crazy.
there were some, like, joke entries in their journal about, oh, we know the snowman is real. You know, if it were a Yeti, obviously it'd be super strong and could kill them super well and would scare them and drive them out of their tent. Another idea is a serial killer that just killed them all. A very, very popular theory is that it was a UFO that killed them in some way. There's that picture of the glowing orbs. The one guy said that he believed that it was, the investigator said he believed it was UFOs. And orange spheres were sighted on that same night that they died by other groups in the area and the local people. But some people say that it was pretty close to a international missile launch testing, and they point to the fact that the bodies were, quote unquote, deep brown tan. But this can be caused by improper thawing out of frozen bodies.
Okay.
But that leads us to the next theory, which is weapons testing, which is why they had such high doses of radiation,
right.
why they died so horrifically. Maybe that's what scared them and drove them out of their tents. So, another theory is that the local Mansi killed them because there was a lot of there was a lot of frustration with the Mansi against the Russians, but for the most part, they were relatively friendly. The story of the Mansi is pretty similar to the story of Native Americans and the American government.
Uh-huh.
Of just, like, forcible conversions, outlawing their religion, forcing them into smaller and smaller areas. So another theory is, like I said, the avalanche or the slab avalanche. We have the theory that maybe it was them trying to escape Russia and they were killed for it. There's also a theory of the sonic theory or infrasound, which is a low frequency sound that's undetectable to the human ear, but you can feel it. And strong winds and the terrain could have amplified it. And this is known to cause panic and disorientation among people. And they thought this might have disoriented the hikers, leading them to run from their tent, and then they died of hypothermia. Another idea is that it was straight up just a government cover-up for either testing or killing them. And also, Rustem, though he was studying, I don't know if you remember, he was studying nuclear engineering.
Yeah.
He was on the cleanup crew of the Kishtem disaster in 1957. Do you know about that?
No.
It's basically Chernobyl. A Chernobyl-like disaster that they covered up. Even people in the area weren't quite sure. They knew something happened, but this didn't come out until after the fall of Soviet Russia. And it was a huge thing to clean it up. And a lot of people were suffering from it and stuff, and they didn't want this to get out at all. So they were really trying to cover this up, the Russian government was. So some people think that maybe they were trying to cover up that he knew about it. And especially if he was trying to get out of if they thought he might have been trying to get out of the country, and they didn't want this to get out even more, because it would have made Russia look bad.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, Russia was really trying to make themselves look so good at the time and idealistic. So, those are all of the theories, and that is what I have. I did want to mention another theory similar to the Mansi killing them out of spite was that some people thought that the Mansi might have been drugged out on Amanita muscaria mushrooms because they're known to eat them for cultural purposes. But because they were trying to villainize Mansi culture, they're like, oh, they might have been drugged out and killed them on these mushrooms. Anyway, so that's another theory. But I want to hear what you have to think about all of this.
So I think most of the theories where it kind of got me was like, where the fuck did this like radiation come from? And then that one girl that had like her eyes and her tongue gone. Like those are really wild to me. But I've been looking into like some theories. So in January of 2021, scientists actually worked really hard to kind of explain what they think happened, and that's where they came with like the slab avalanche where unlike a normal avalanche that's just snow, a slab avalanche is like a giant fucking sheet of ice that comes down the mountain at you. And so they said that there was actually a lot of evidence that it could be like a slab avalanche that like came down the mountain. They cut themselves out of the tent. It injured like 3 people, but they like escaped and ran out. Some people died from hypothermia, and like you said, they like suffered from their like hypothalamus,
the paradoxical undressing.
Yeah, and so they like undressed, and then the other 4 got out farther but had way more severe injuries from the avalanche. And then where the radiation part comes in is a lot of people actually think, because I guess what I see a lot of people saying is that actually 2 of the Dyatlov Pass members actively worked at nuclear stations.
That's what I was saying about the Kishtim disaster.
Yeah, and so a lot of their clothing might have already had radioactive substances on them.
But the thing with that is that, like I said, when they washed it in labs, it went away. The one guy was working there like 3 years ago, and if you wash your clothes, I mean, I don't know if he's like wearing if it's like a sweater coat, but he's like, if you wash it a few times, it'll get rid of it. And it had been in a river for a while. It shouldn't be that severely radioactive. It was so bad that the pilots sent to pick up the bodies refused to take the bodies until they were put in like zinc-lined coffins, because they were like, this is super dangerous. This is against regulations. We will not touch these.
Yeah, but that's also the thing, is that, like, from what I've been reading, is 2 of the members actively still work at nuclear power plants. So if they had, like, let's say they went to work the day before, and they, like, brought some, like, clothes that they had even around their work clothes that had, like, any sort of nuclear material on them, because, like, radiation dust gets everywhere. And, like, literally any sort of microscopic dust of uranium is going to be highly radioactive. If they went to work even a couple days before they decided to go on this hike, they might still be like highly radioactive, and that's where that's coming from.
That's a good point.
That's a good theory. Either that, or like maybe their like Geiger counters weren't working properly, but I don't see that being the case, because like they had people out there investigating that were like trained in working with this kind of stuff, so I don't think that's the kind of case. But that is the only way I could see them explaining away the radiation. And like, I'm still not even completely sure that they had like actively worked a fucking shift at the nuclear power plant before going on this hike.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how I feel. I just think the theories are fun on this. I think that, or like the weapons testing is probably the most likely. Yeah. But so in the book that I was listening to, the author proposed a theory that I think is quite interesting. I don't know if I think there's some gaps in this, but she points out that there's an interesting theory that they might have been murdered using hypothermia. They might have been forced out of the tent, which is why they didn't return, and the tent was cut in such a way that they couldn't return. It wasn't like a few slashes. It was like chunks of the tent were missing, full on missing. Their footprints didn't show sliding as if they had been running. It was like they all were walking. And then with like I said, with the marks on Dyatlov showing that he had been tied up, they might have tied him up, let him die, and then untied him. Was like, this is her theory, is like, maybe they did that as like, oh, obviously they weren't just like killed, because that'd be too obvious, like, oh, this is murder, of like, well, we forced them out into the weather and they died of exposure. So that was an interesting theory. I thought that was an interesting theory. I think the infrasound sonic theory is a whole bunch of hooey. It's goofy and nonsense of like, it was a super intense low frequency sound that drove them insane.
Yeah, but if that was the case, I don't know, there would have been, like, some sort of evidence of, like, sound waves, right? Like, they would have checked, like, their eardrums or something. Like,
yeah.
If it's loud enough or, like, crazy enough to crush your fucking ribs, what do you think is going to happen to your eardrums? So that theory doesn't make any sense to me.
What I think is wild, though, is that the liver mortis.
Yes, and it shows that they're removed, and that's my thing is like the avalanche theory, I guess, makes a little bit of sense.
Because maybe they were kept sliding.
Yeah, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense with, like, some of the injuries, like the weird bruising around the ankles and the feet. I don't know how the fuck that happens with the avalanche.
A lot of I just want to also say that a lot of them showed evidence of maybe getting in a fight, but they were in that fight in the train station like 6 days ago. But not everyone was in that fight with the drunk guy.
Yeah, they didn't all fight the drunk guy.
Because they had, like, some of them had bust lips and bruising on their teeth and, like, scuffed hands, like they had been fighting someone or brawling.
Yeah, but then also, like, the one that gets me is, like, okay, so the missing tongue could have been bit off. Like, I am willing to accept that. But the fact that both of her eyes were gone, that's just weird to me. Like, I don't know. That bothers me. The theories
I have heard with that is it was animal scavenging, but if that was the case, why wasn't everybody else's eyeballs gone?
Like, why just her eyeballs? Like, it seems to me like somebody fucking plucked out her eyes.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird.
And, like, was it revenge against someone or something?
Yeah.
You know? And there's a whole bunch of mystery surrounding Zolotaryov, the oldest guy.
Yeah.
Like, why did he just randomly show up and was
with like a bunch of
I am with
college
you guys.
kids.
Yeah, he like showed up and was like, hey, I'm going with you guys. And they're like, what?
Like, it's not like he previously knew any of them, right? He just found this random group of college kids and was like, I'm going to join you on this hike. That's fucking sketchy as fuck.
I mean, I know he was a sports instructor and like a expedition instructor, so maybe he heard about it through that and was like, hey, I'm gonna go with you guys because you're going on this expedition. I want more, like, I just want to go out and keep doing expeditions. And maybe he knew about it through that because they were in the same sort of circles in that sense. But, like, this is just so weird that he's like, and there's so many people that are like, maybe he's a KGB agent and stuff.
Right.
And straight up, even their journals were like, yeah, he might be KGB sent to keep an eye on us. So.
Yeah, like, honestly, I would have been skeptical of him too. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, he's like almost twice their age. You know? And is like, this, I don't know. It's a whole weird thing. But what gets me with that is that he also died.
Right, and so he was in on it, but then again, maybe it was like one of those government cover-up things where...
Maybe he killed them, which is why he had the clothes of the lady that was right next to him, and then they killed him to cover up that he killed them.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, I don't know, it's weird. It's so weird and so just bizarre. I don't think that the native people killed him.
And also, like, the burns on those two, so what they, like... So they survived long enough to make a makeshift fire and then were so cold that they, like, fucking got in the fire and burnt themselves?
Yeah, it got onto them. I heard a theory that they had died and the person that moved the other bodies wanted to see if they were dead. So they took a coal from the fire and, like, touched it to them to see if they would react. And another thing is there were around that... campfire was evidence of cuts on the trees, but none of them had knives other than one guy who had a little pocket knife because they left all their equipment in the tent. So, but it could have been like broken off really cleanly. I don't know how breaking off a half-frozen tree works. It doesn't get cold enough around here for that.
I saw one theory was that they had like a camping stove that they were using inside the tent and it caught fire, which caused them to, like, make those slits and get out of, like, the tent.
But why wasn't the tent burnt? Why wasn't the tent burnt?
Yeah,
why was only two of them burnt?
It was like, okay, so, like, that's how those two people got burnt. But, yeah, you're right. Is like, nothing else had evidence of burning. So if it, like, caught fire, where is the evidence of that?
Yeah. Look up. Picture 17, Dyatlov Pass, picture 17. I want you to look at this Yeti photo. It's so funny. It's so fucking funny to me. It's like, he's just like peeking around like, hey, did you call me?
Oh my god.
It's so funny. So that's why people like, it was a Yeti. But also, they could have been doing it as a joke, or it could have been an out of focus, because it kind of looks like someone in a jacket and a hat.
Yeah, it
like
could either
clothes.
be like somebody in winter clothes, but it does look like a straight up Yeti photo.
Look up picture 34, Dyatlov Pass picture 34.
What the fuck?
Of the lights. So some people think it was the camera not open fully.
Yeah.
It looks like a lens flare to me. But yeah, no, the fucking picture 17 is so funny.
Weird.
You can look up online all of these pictures. I would recommend doing it, but just know that a lot of the pictures you look up, they're pictures of the dead bodies and like autopsy photos that you look up, and like crime and like pictures of the quote unquote crime scene. So be prepared for that if you look it up. Like, they're old pictures, but it's straight up like a dead body. So just be aware of that if you look up these pictures. I'll be posting some of the nicer, more pleasant pictures, or the less hard to handle pictures online on our Instagram. But yeah, so that's the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Yeah, and I truly have no actual
Oh no, I don't
answers.
either. My best guess is it's a government cover-up of some sort, or weapons testing. That's my best guess, because it was such a rush job to close the case. The fact that there's so many inconsistencies and it's such a rush job to close the case, and they were more focused on trying to find the bodies, really makes me think it was a government cover-up. But also, I don't know anything. I'm just guessing. I'm just a gal with a podcast yapping into a mic.
And we're never, like, really gonna know what happened, which is what really bothers me
I
with
know.
stuff like this. Is, like, I want to know so bad, but we're never going to know.
No, we're
ever.
not. Unless we have, like, a time machine.
Yeah. Somebody
So-
needs to get the fuck on that.
Yeah, just so we can solve the Dyatlov Pass incident.
And then destroy it. Like, I just
Yeah.
want to know what happened in Dyatlov Pass, and then you destroy the time machine because we don't deserve that technology.
You kill Hitler, solve the Dyatlov Pass incident, and you make sure original Coke never goes away and we never have to deal with new Coke. So Coke is originally how it was in the 80s.
Which is cocaine in it? That's
No,
terrible
before the
idea.
cocaine.
Okay.
They changed the recipe, they brought out new Coke, it was terrible, and then they brought back original Coke. It was slightly different but still better as like a marketing thing, but it was still worse than the very original Coke. And I really want to try the very original Coke. So we need to bring, not the one with cocaine in,
Okay.
the original recipe.
Okay.
So solve Dyatlov Pass, bring back original Coke, kill Hitler, destroy the time machine.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please rate the podcast and share it with the weird people in your life. Follow us on Instagram at whataboutweird.pod, where we often share pictures related to the episodes. We are also on Blue Sky at whataboutweirdpod. If you have any topic suggestions or personal weird stories, please DM us or email us at whataboutweirdpod@gmail.com.
And always remember,
To ask about the weird.
bye for now!